Welcome to the Englishstorywell channel, your ultimate destination for captivating stories that enhance your English learning journey. Here, we believe that stories are not just a form of entertainment, but a powerful tool to improve your language skills. Let's go to started.
Chapter 1. The Old Manor. Emily Thompson was an ordinary young woman with an extraordinary curiosity for history and adventure. Living in the bustling city of New York, she often found herself yearning for quiet, peaceful places. When she received a letter from her late grandmother's solicitor, informing her of an inheritance, she was intrigued and decided to take a break from her hectic life. The letter mentioned an old manor in the English countryside that had been in her family for generations. Emily had heard stories about the manor from her grandmother, who used to talk about it with a sense of mystery and nostalgia. Intrigued and excited, Emily packed her bags and flew to England. The manor was located in a small village called Ashbourne, nestled among rolling hills and lush forests. As Emily approached the village, she was struck by its charm. The houses were quaint, with thatched roofs and flower-filled gardens. The villagers were friendly and curious about the new arrival. The manor itself was a grand, yet slightly dilapidated, building surrounded by overgrown gardens and ancient trees. Its stone walls were covered in ivy, and its windows were tall and narrow, giving it a slightly eerie appearance. Emily felt a thrill of excitement as she stepped through the creaking wooden gate and walked up the cobblestone path to the front door. Inside, the manor was a treasure trove of history. The furniture was antique, and the walls were adorned with portraits of Emily's ancestors. The air was filled with the scent of old books and polished wood. Emily wandered through the rooms, feeling a deep connection to her family's past. Chapter 2. The Mysterious Key. As Emily explored the manor, she found herself drawn to the library. It was a grand room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with dusty volumes. A large wooden desk stood in the center, covered in papers and old maps. Emily sat down at the desk and began to sift through the documents, hoping to learn more about her family's history. Among the papers, she found an old, weathered diary. It belonged to her great-great-grandfather, Edward Thompson. The entries were filled with accounts of his travels and adventures. Emily was fascinated by his stories, but one entry in particular caught her attention. "Today, I discovered the entrance to the forgotten garden," Edward had written. "It is a place of great beauty and mystery, hidden from the world for many years. I have found the key to the garden, and I shall keep it safe." Emily's curiosity was piqued. A forgotten garden? She wondered where it could be. She continued to read the diary, hoping to find more clues. At the end of the diary, she found a small, brass key attached to a ribbon. It was old and intricately designed, with an inscription that read, "The Garden of Secrets." Excited by her discovery, Emily set out to find the entrance to the garden. She searched the manor and the surrounding grounds, but there was no sign of a hidden door or passage. Determined not to give up, she decided to ask the villagers if they knew anything about the garden. Chapter 3. The Village Tales. The next morning, Emily visited the village pub, the Rose and Crown. It was a cozy place with wooden beams, a roaring fireplace, and a friendly atmosphere. The villagers were gathered around, sharing stories and enjoying their drinks. Emily approached the bar and struck up a conversation with the bartender, a cheerful woman named Mary. "Hello there," Emily said, smiling. "I'm Emily Thompson. I recently inherited the old manor up the hill." Mary's eyes widened with recognition. "Ah, the Thompson Manor. It's been a long time since anyone lived there. What brings you to Ashbourne?" I'm trying to learn more about my family's history, Emily explained. I found an old diary that mentioned a forgotten garden. Do you know anything about it? Mary's expression turned thoughtful. I've heard stories about the garden, but no one has seen it for many years. Some say it's hidden somewhere on the manor grounds, but it's been lost to time. One of the villagers, an elderly man named George, overheard the conversation and chimed in. I remember my grandfather talking about the garden. He said it was a magical place, full of rare plants and beautiful flowers. But he also said it was cursed, and that anyone who tried to find it would get lost. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. A curse? What kind of curse? George shrugged. No one knows for sure. It's just one of those old legends. But if you're determined to find the garden, you might want to talk to old Mrs. Blackwood. She's the village historian and knows more about the manor than anyone else. Chapter 4, Mrs. Blackwood's Wisdom. Emily thanked George and Mary for their help and set off to find Mrs. Blackwood. The historian lived in a charming cottage at the edge of the village, surrounded by a well-tended garden. Emily knocked on the door, and after a moment, an elderly woman with bright, curious eyes opened it. Mrs. Blackwood? Emily asked politely. My name is Emily Thompson. I've come to ask you about the forgotten garden at my family's manor. Mrs. Blackwood's eyes lit up with interest. Ah, the Thompson Manor. Please, come in, my dear. I haven't had a visitor in quite some time. Emily followed her inside, admiring the cozy interior filled with books, artifacts, and family heirlooms. They sat down at a small table, and Mrs. Blackwood poured them each a cup of tea. I've heard many stories about the garden, Mrs. Blackwood began. It's said to be a place of great beauty and mystery, hidden from the world by your great-great-grandfather, Edward Thompson. He was a botanist, you know, and he traveled the world collecting rare plants. The garden was his sanctuary, a place where he could study and cultivate his collection. Emily nodded, remembering the diary. I found a key with an inscription that reads the Garden of Secrets. Do you know where the entrance might be? Mrs. Blackwood smiled. Ah, the key. It's said that only a true Thompson can find the entrance. The garden is hidden by a clever mechanism, designed to protect it from intruders. There is a statue in the manor's courtyard, a statue of a lion. Legend has it that the keyhole is hidden somewhere on the statue. Excited by this new information, Emily thanked Mrs. Blackwood and hurried back to the manor. She went straight to where she found the statue of the lion. It was an imposing figure, carved from stone and covered in moss. Emily carefully examined the statue, looking for any sign of a keyhole. Chapter 5, The Hidden Entrance. After a thorough search, Emily found a small, hidden compartment at the base of the lion's paw. She inserted the key and turned it. With a soft click, the compartment opened, revealing a hidden lever. Emily pulled the lever, and to her amazement, a section of the courtyard floor began. It was a hidden paradise, filled with exotic plants, vibrant flowers, and ancient trees. A small stream meandered through the garden, its waters sparkling in the soft light filtering through a glass ceiling above. Emily wandered through the garden, marveling at its beauty. She found a stone bench near the stream and sat down, feeling a deep sense of peace and wonder. As she sat there, she felt a presence beside her. She turned to see the ghostly figure of her great-great-grandfather, Edward Thompson, smiling at her. Welcome, Emily, he said in a gentle voice. I'm glad you found the garden. It is a place of great beauty and knowledge, and it is now yours to protect and cherish. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she listened to her ancestors' words. Thank you, great-great-grandfather. I promise to take care of the garden and continue your work. Edward nodded, his figure beginning to fade. Remember, Emily, the garden is not just a place of beauty. It is a sanctuary of knowledge and... Chapter 6. The Village's Secret. Over the next few weeks, Emily dedicated herself to restoring and maintaining the garden. She spent hours tending to the plants, studying their properties, and learning about their history. She also shared her discoveries with the villagers, who were fascinated by the hidden garden and its secrets. As Emily grew closer to the villagers, she learned that the garden had played a significant role in the village's history. It had been a source of healing and knowledge for generations, providing remedies and cures for various ailments. The villagers had always respected the Thompson family's dedication to preserving the garden's secrets. One day, Emily received a visit from Mrs. Blackwood. The historian brought with her a collection of old documents and maps, which she believed would help Emily learn more about the garden's history and significance. These documents were passed down through my family, Mrs. Blackwood explained. They contain valuable information about the plants in the garden and their uses. I believe they will help you in your work. Emily was deeply grateful for the historian's generosity. She spent hours poring over the documents, discovering new plants and their unique properties. She also found references to an ancient ritual that was said to protect the garden and its secrets. According to the documents, the ritual had to be performed every 50 years to ensure the garden's continued prosperity. It involved Whether you're a beginner or an advanced learner, our carefully curated stories cater to all levels, making learning English enjoyable and effective. Join our community of language enthusiasts and let the magic of storytelling transform your learning experience. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. Dive into Englishstorywell, where every story is a step towards mastering English.